Hi, Hassan.
I was still on mute. How are you, Celia?
Oh, I'm good. I'm not staying on the call very long. It
Okay.
looks like it's recording, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you or Tyler the host. So I
Okay.
appreciate that. It's been very interesting. The internet is good because we're in a hotel, but it seems to go in and out. So anyway, how are you?
Doing well. You- I'm excited for where you're at.
It's been quite interesting. It's 170 countries here represented, and the subject of our call is shared vision, right?
Mhm.
So we talk about ecosystems, and hey, Sam, um, and the whole messaging here. Let me see if I can find a flyer or a brochure. Um, it's all about creating one global ecosystem, but I don't think people quite know what it means. We just keep saying the word,
Uh,
you know? Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's so this shared vision call is so apropos because it's like um, the whole idea of connected systems and vision, and we're working towards the same thing. But Andy interviewed 48 people last year at the Global Entrepreneurship Congress and asked them, what's entrepreneurship? What's an ecosystem? Right? What makes you an entrepreneur? What's an ecosystem? And he probably got 48 different answers. They're similar, but they're not the same. I asked people, what do you need to make a vibrant ecosystem? And again, lots of different answers, but I would say among five, the top three somewhere was education. And hey, Tyler. So education, access to education, quality education, things like that were really top of mind for everyone. But I don't think they keep using this word. So where's my Gen step? Hang on, I will show you the collateral. Okay. So building one global ecosystem.
Yay!
Yeah, except that I don't know that they get one local global ecosystem. Like, what are the nodes? So there's value web people here, and I can't forget what I can't remember what they called it. It was like scan, focus, and whatever. And it was like, oh, that sounds very much like discover, design, and deliver. Value web, right? But they had this community mapping canvas. So Andy was asking if anybody else has a community canvas that they use, that it would be really great if we could collect all the different kinds of community canvases. So that may be a thing that we ask people to do. Um, and it would be curious to see how others define it, right? And that's a really great thing to talk about, what the shared vision was. So yes, we keep using this word ecosystem, like in everything. Remember the first ESHIP, Hassan?
Yeah. Yep.
Did you really know what an ecosystem was or an ecosystem builder was when you first got there?
Not an ecosystem builder and ecosystem, like the word, it's like a buzzword that's, you hear it in so many different circles over the years, and people just use the word without actually defining what it means to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what, like, just whenever I've heard that word in different circles, it was always in the past like, okay, we're using this word, but what exactly does
it mean? Yeah, I think that that's the case all over. And so I would really love for you guys to think about, well, first of all, let me ask you if you have any questions. You've all three been on several calls. So when the ESHIP Summit is happening, I think all of you are registered, if I'm not mistaken, right? I know that I think Tyler and Hassan were in a conversation about like an Airbnb that we were all, thinking about. And I would probably invite you to connect with David at Co-Starters to see how that lines up. There's a couple of large Airbnbs near the Sheraton Crown Plaza or Sheraton Crown Center. So if you're into that, are you eating a dill pickle?
Yeah.
No. Okay. It was a green thing that you just shoved in your face, and we have it on tape. Is it a kosher? No. It's a half sour. Yes.
Half sour.
All right. Yeah.
Half sour.
Like, I can't get a stinking half sour pickle anywhere around Oklahoma.
So
People
good.
don't know pickles.
Oh, it's so good. It's delicious.
Well, look
Yeah,
at what,
okay.
and I know this isn't as healthy as what you're eating, Tyler, but somebody just gave me this today, and I've never seen this, but
Oh my God. Yeah, those are good.
We need those in the ecosystem. Stick our trees. Okay, now you know that this is all being recorded, so people are going to wonder what we're talking about. And for the, okay.
You threw out, do we have questions? I have a question. When you just said it would be interesting to ask everyone to bring their community mapping canvas,
Mm-hmm.
do you mean their individual ecosystem map? Are we using those words interchangeably?
So no. So what is the framework for which you measure, right? Because I think that we're measuring different things. So that this kind of overlaps between shared vision and goal 5, which is the quantified methods, right? So metrics and methods are what we're measuring. Are we using the same terminology? So so the shared vision piece is, do we feel that the thing that we're measuring, right, is similar to the thing that's being measured in Daytona Beach or Detroit or whatever? And I don't know. So I think that it would be really interesting to see what the canvas looks like for everyone, right?
I think that was really interesting. Yeah, I just think that some people might hear, maybe it's just me, but some people might hear ecosystem map.
And that's fine. You know what? And if you have an ecosystem map, that's a good starting off point. So it's the grid. So with like Startup Genome and what they deliver, and see, I'm getting like these low quality messages. So I have people messaging me. I'm gonna run. I can make Hassan or Tyler pick one. Like, oh, okay, fine. All right, so I'm going to make Tyler the host. No, see, it's too late. You were busy chewing, and now you are the host. So it should keep recording. You have to hit record, I think, maybe.
No, it's going.
Okay, all right. So
it's going. Do we have an agenda that you sent over?
No, because really the thing that we wanted to talk about was A, do you have any questions about the summit that's coming up?
Yep.
B, we're moving all those briefs over, but this goal is probably the one goal that we work on while we're there. So what I'd love for you to talk about is when you get 450 ecosystem builders and 100 to 150 mayors and mayor staff, right? What is it that you want to solve for? Because there's only one. These are things that, think about the things that you can only do when you have everybody together, right?
Yep. Okay.
That we can't do on calls, that we can't talk about. So shared vision, how intriguing that is about the community map. If you have topics that should go in an unconference, like we're really refining the schedule and working on the work. And not to say that anything else isn't important. So if there's something that you think should be pitched or talked about when, and what would go in an unconference versus what goes into a discussion. If you would focus on what shared vision or what lexicon or what thing,
Okay.
mission, vision, whatever. Anyway, you got that.
Can you give us the most recent links to the initiatives? Just, I know the beta dashboard, but just the description so I can go through. I don't have one. Mine's messed up.
I think the beta dashboard is the closest. So if
Okay.
you share, and Sam, you've got a link to the beta dashboard,
I got
right?
beta.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So use that one. I think Hassan and Tyler, both ESHIP champions, they'll get probably a briefing sometimes next week when we schedule that, and then we'll share it out again before ESHIP Summit. So Sam, you'll have access to it. So the latest, greatest, whatever, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna bid you a good evening. It is now 8:09.
Have fun. Travel safe. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. So, Samantha, I just added in the beta dashboard. Did you already have that? I didn't hear the answer. I'm sorry.
I do. Yeah, I have it in my favorites. I'm good.
All right. Sweet. So, I guess when we're really looking at that, we're talking about 3 for ourselves. Right. This is goal 3 call. Yeah. Too many of these things.
I know. I just looked at it too, actually.
Did you? I was like, wait, what day is it? All right. So fieldwork mission value statements. I'm trying to see where we are on the actual initiatives.
When I first got involved in ESHIP, this was the goal that I was the most excited about.
Yeah.
I just haven't had a chance to plug into this one at all.
No, it's definitely, well, I mean, I think Hassan, you can back me up. I think, in the conversations that we've had and the stuff that's come across is, that we can do all this work if we want, but to be honest, if we don't dial in the, the vision and the values and what are we going to hold ourselves accountable to and stuff like that is, how do you define an industry without, creating accountability and the same stuff. So I think that's where this started. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, and Cecilia just mentioned where she's at right now. Like people don't have a definition of what an ecosystem, but like people keep using the word and they just like there's no common definition. There's no understanding of what everybody is talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really important to do that.
So hold on, if there's been something that's been bugging me for a while.
Sure. Go for it.
Like this is across all calls that we have this constant conversation about the different definitions of entrepreneurship, and I'm on board with that. I've read a ton about the implications of that to funders and things like that. But is it that one of us needs to define what we mean by entrepreneurship, or is it more of it's okay, there are these 5 different routes of what entrepreneurship could mean, and but the thing is those routes lead to different places, and just being more intentional about the fact that if you mean entrepreneurship in the sense of metrics that are job creation, then that is one type of curriculum, for example. But if you mean entrepreneurship as far as entrepreneurial mindset, that is a totally different curriculum and metrics. And right. So you kind of go down this like bunny trail of, and it all starts with definition, but I think we could I really do think we could outline it. And I think that the literature shows that it can be outlined in like 4 or 5 different lanes. But I think
the thought is to avoid the lanes as much as possible. I think because, so you have to go back to as we talked about, ecosystem, right? Where does that come from? That was, and I wanted to chime in, but I was eating, so I apologize.
That's okay.
So ecosystem came out of Victor's book, Rainforest. So if you're subscribing to the rainforest theory, which is the ultimate goal here, right, is that you're not focusing on the trees, you're looking at the dirt. So everything makes up the dirt. It's not just the entrepreneurial people, it's the other parts of the community too. We talk about entrepreneurs as the focus, and obviously that is for us, you know, and is that the business, is that the person, is that the program, you know, because everybody's trying something. But for me, when they're talking ecosystem builder, it doesn't necessarily refer to startups and business.
Yeah, and I agree with you. We agree
So,
with that. But I mean, like, you kind of have to meet people also where they are.
yep.
And acknowledge that, like, entrepreneurship for some people is just about starting a business, and that's where they are. So they get kind of lost if you don't have an entry point of like conversation with them, you know?
So I think part of the idea with the living dictionary was that there are a lot of people that are using different words to describe the same thing. So the idea was to put together a dictionary and definitions so that we all have a common understanding of, okay, we were using all these different words. We're talking about the same thing, just so that we all know, like, identify words that we're going to use to describe those things that we're now using different words.
How far have we gotten with that? Because I'm sorry, I haven't been a part of that conversation. Nowhere.
Yeah, I don't think that's
okay. Because in the UK, it's a very clear differentiation between enterprise and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
For example, you know, and that, like, there's so much. I mean, the UK is just like, they're running, they're off to the races, you know, and there's still debate. Like, there's always debate, but I wonder what stops us from adopting something or like generating feedback about an adoption of something, you know, so it's not set in stone, but it's like a draft of, here's what could be, and then you kind of collect feedback.
Yeah, so I think, can you hear me?
And then, yeah, cool, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just going to say, I think there were also ideas that were floated out there about possibly doing something at ESHIP. I don't know if that's still the idea or if that's changed. So
you know,
there are ideas.
Sorry, I get excited about this topic. Go ahead.
No. That's it. There were ideas about doing something, and I don't know what the format would be, but basically, when you have like the 450 people in the room together, trying to figure something out with settling on definitions while we're there. And I don't know if that's still the plan, but I know that idea was floated at some point.
You know, it would be so cool. It seems like it would be interesting to get feedback from the mayors, separate from the ecosystem builders, and ask the mayors, you know, what is your definition of this? What is your definition of this? In some interesting way. And then also what metrics matter to you. And then have the builders on one side saying, which metrics are you capturing? And just see how well they align, you know? Just a thought.
That's actually the plan. So good guess.
Okay, I'll be quiet and just listen.
No, it's okay. So it's a really good guess. I'm trying to find the most recent docs, but I don't have it. So I'm just giving you, I just put up the create part of 3, which is the shared mission, the vision, the statements. And this one is old again. I apologize. It's August, so I'm sure that it's a little further along in some of the stuff, but it might help to answer some of the whys, you know, and the who. Just at least initially in terms of what are we talking from standardization. So in regards to what you were saying, I think that there was a conversation about we're going to try to gather that data in 3 different ways. Well, number 1, we're going to bring it up at the unconference when we start to get people thinking about it. You know, here's a challenge for you over the next 3 days. This is what we want you thinking about, you know, etc. And then there are going to be, I believe there's going to be a video interview booth where they're going to ask the questions. Cool. So which is going to be nice, as well as I think we're putting it on paper somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where yet. So I haven't been involved in a lot of the logistics of that yet, but we definitely recognize the fact that we have a unique opportunity with the ecosystem builders, the mayors, the partners. We also are going to have 50 to 100 people that representing the 50 national resource partners as well. So what's their definition? Like let me,
oh my God, yes.
yeah. So
yes, that's like gold, all that stuff.
yeah, exactly. And we really got a lot of that at the last ESHIP too. It was kind of the first part of that, is determining what language are we speaking, and then realizing, okay, we have the same language, but we have different dialects, that we're using. So that this is going to be to kind of define and or create the new universal dialect, for this, to say. Hassan said something about, like a dictionary, right? What is what? I kind of envision it more as a living thesaurus, where it's like, this is what we're talking about, but you may also call it this, this, and this, but to be honest, this is what we mean when we say that. So that is the ultimate goal. And really, I think we have to kind of keep in mind, we have to keep in mind what's the real goal of all of this ESHIP work in the first place, right? And it's the idea is to take the give, which is the national resource partners and all the money, and the ask, which is us, and move it that much closer.
Definitely.
So really, I think that would be our goal with these particular, initiatives that they have with the mission, the value, and the statements. The living dictionary, that's the project happening at ESHIP, it's literally the dictionary.
You said something, Tyler. You just said something which I really liked, which was the thesaurus versus a dictionary. I feel we should change that 3.2 to living thesaurus for the field.
A living thesaurus, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the concept, right? So I think that would be good. In terms of 3.3, which is the builder pledge, I believe the last discussions were to kind of wait until the dictionary comes out because we don't want to use words in the pledge that later on get tossed, so or mean the wrong thing in somebody's eyes. So really, I think right now the main focus is just to try and figure out what are some of the best ways for us to gather that information, initially, and then how do we put that back together? So, I mean, is there anything jumping out at you guys right now as to what you see?
So are you trying to answer Cecilia's question now? Like she said, here's what would be ideal. And would the answer to something like that be a design thinking session? Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I understand what the desired outcome is here.
Yep.
What do you think, Hassan?
No, I like that. I mean, I like the design thinking session.
I definitely think there's something there. I mean, it seems like it would lend itself well to design thinking. And although I could stumble my way through something like that, I'm sure that there's somebody else that would be would do a really good job at that. I'm not sure who that person is, but I bet Cecilia knows.
Yeah, I got to think maybe if Cecilia's definitely probably got the contact. Mike Fleisch comes to mind with Value Web. He's a super smart dude, and oh wait, that's recorded, isn't it? I'll never let that go.
What's his name again?
Mike Fleisch, Fleisch. He's with Value Web.
I always like design thinking people.
Yeah, he's a thinker for sure. He knows a couple of theory of change is big for him. A couple other things. So we geek out on some of that stuff. But yeah, I do like the idea of applying design thinking theory, to how are we going to collect the data, because I think, as we all know, we're going to have a room of 500 or 600 awesome people, but those are also the people that tend to take over conversations. So I don't know if we're going to get a lot out if we just wild west, I think we do have to steer the conversation, or at least steer the thinking and steer the thinking, and hopefully the results will be a little filtered, will be a little.
Yeah. And sometimes I've learned with these design thinking people, especially if they're really good at it, not to give them the questions. Like, they know how to pair it, they know how to position these things to get the desired outcome. But I do think it's important. The one thing that I'll say that you guys will probably agree with is it's important to separate the segments.
Yeah.
You know, to really understand, like, here's what this audience said, you know?
Yeah. How would you break up the segments if you would?
I mean, it would be as easy as saying, I mean, there would have to be a designated time to do this, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where everyone's naturally in the room. But if you have a big, you know, poster that says, you know, resource providers come over here, you know, ecosystem builders or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mayors over here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
or is it better to not have people identify their perspective?
I don't know, because honestly, you could have a lot of those people in the room are not going to be resource providers. So the resource providers are going to be the ones that are really going to be able to identify what the outcomes are that they're looking for. That's going to be the funds.
We're not asking them that.
Well,
this part isn't that. That's not what we're asking them for. So this is. I wonder if it's better to not necessarily identify what is my perspective. Like, am I an ecosystem builder? I'm a resource partner as a so-and-so, versus giving a universal set of questions to everybody, no matter who you are, and give us your perspective, your individualized personal perspective. You know, now we're going to get a blend that we're like, this feels like a resource partner, this feels like an entrepreneur, but is there more value in the raw data as one big ecosystem, or is it better to put those in their lanes? Because I don't know.
I think that's a better question for the broader group than this.
Yeah, I still want your opinion.
I think those are two different paths that we should be intentional about, and that's one of those decisions that's so important. It should be made by a bigger group, you know.
Of course, but you know, the thinking is just for the three of us who are here on the call. We're not representing all of America, but you know, I'm asking, you know, for your opinion. Like, do you think one or the other would be better? You know, and if so, why? You know, it would, so we can kind of say. And Hassan, chime in.
I think you kind of steer the outcome into two different directions.
Yeah.
On what you decide.
Yeah. You steer the outcome from the questions, if you put them in lanes, or if you.
Yeah, depending on how you start off, you're gonna see.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah. So if the questions are a little bit more specific to them and their attitude, then we're gonna get more specific responses. You know, versus if it just, you know, how do you define an ecosystem? You know, is a generalized question. That but it also gives us perspective, so I guess we'll have to kind of put that out the vote. You know, it's like, hey, what's, you know, what kind of angle do we want to do this on, you know, in terms of trying to gather and collect this data. So okay,
would it be three sets of information that we're looking to gather? Are we just looking to build the dictionary through this?
Well, the living dictionary is going to kind of come from it. I think it's, you know, when we talk about field-wide mission, values, and statements and outcomes, you know, the foundational aspects is really kind of, I think, super important, you know, and that I think is where your perspective, you know, focus comes in, you know, because certain people will look at, you know, what do I look as foundational from an, you know, community ecosystem position when I'm running programs, versus what do I look as foundational for a community if I'm a impact investor, you know?
Yeah,
it's a completely different set of foundational tools in said community, you know? So I think that, and again, this is just me talking, but I think we have to kind of do both at the same time, you know, is we have to gather all the possible living thesaurus items, you know, for the dictionary.
Yeah.
But then that is also going to help us dial in the field-wide mission, value statements and that. And once that's defined, then it's very easy to say, you know, I take the pledge, you know, to do 3.1 and 3.2.
You know, what's also another interesting way, if you wanted to look at another option beyond design thinking, is doing almost like a phone survey where they can ask you, hey, type in what does entrepreneurship mean to you? You know, what is your definition? Or here's 3 options. What is, you know, put these in order, or something like that could be put up on the screen.
Well, what about I mean, we've got attendees registering at this point, you know, so I wonder if it would be possible to send a pre-ship survey, you know?
I'm like so frustrated by survey response.
Well,
right
yeah,
now.
but you know, just to get some initials, you know, just to say, hey,
Yeah. Part of me also goes back to what Cecilia just said about Andy when she said he interviewed 40 something people and, you know, got like 48 different responses. And one of the reasons I like design thinking is because you start with a blank sheet of paper with no predefined anything, and you have all these people in a room. Like, it just seems less frustrating than a survey to some extent.
But you know, do you think
doc student that's slightly stressed about surveys right now too?
no worries.
do you think anybody really analyzes what people are saying? Because I tend to think, especially like if you think about, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I tend to think that sometimes people are saying the same thing, but they're using different words to say it. And we're only looking at the words that people use without diving deeper into, like we're going to have mayors and members of their staff along with ecosystem builders at I see that. Along with members of their staff, and then you have ecosystem builders. And I think it's interesting because I think the traditional economic development folks and the ecosystem builders sometimes are saying the same thing, but they're using different words, and sometimes are trying to achieve the same thing, but using different tactics to achieve it. And we tend to focus on the words that we use and the tactics rather than what we're, like, the end result.
Yep.
And what we're actually saying with the words.
Exactly. I think that really is we can't deliver a potential end result and expect buy-in, you know, from the larger community without the community also saying, okay, here's our word, and then seeing what fits. I like the design thinking. I don't know why, but word cloud kind of keeps coming to me.
Yeah.
You know, as a potential pre-survey. You know, I wonder if we use a word cloud to kind of give us the best possible actual survey result. You know, it's like, so how do we get A, B, C, D, you know, for the actual answer asking, you know, do we do a word cloud pre-survey, say, hey, just put in the word, you know, this equals, put your word in, this equals, you know, type of deal.
Yeah. Like,
and
the word other
and
than
then let that create its own, you know, the word cloud is hard to fight, right? You know, it's like
thesaurus, you know,
yeah.
Like what's the one word that means something other than the equivalent of entrepreneurship? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, no, just even, you know, like how do you explain these things, you know, in your community? You know, maybe it's half and half, right? Maybe it's if this equals this for me. Right? You know, so we have 10 questions. It's like ecosystem equals what? Blank, you know? And then we maybe it takes the other way and we put in blank equals something else, you know, where it's kind of flipped. You know, it's like, do you use this term or do you use, you know, these? I don't know. I'm not sure. I've been tried to pull that kind of thing off, or, you know,
I love the idea, but I would be like, no, if I open that in the middle of my work day, but I'm a driver, so.
Yeah, or it's, you know, maybe you know, out of these 4 or 5 words, which makes the most sense to you, you know, and, you know, just pick one of these words to mean this. You know, don't worry, you're not defining it for everybody, but we're just going to see kind of what was the more common, more popular responses, you know, when somebody says this. I know we did them for the last ESHIP, and that's where a lot of the main terms you see in the goals and initiatives now came from. You know, was like that. I refer to it like this. Like, okay, well that's the biggest one out of 30 words. That's the winner. You know.
I actually think we could collect. I mean, literally, we're talking about blank sheets of paper on a wall. You know, and we could say, stick a sticky up here to answer these questions and create a word cloud from those. And it would
Yeah, but we don't have that much time to facilitate at ESHIP. So they're better off getting a large chunk of that done and then taking the top 5, top 10 more popular out of the cloud and then saying, now out of this list, what's your top 3?
But then you're pigeonholing him and you're assuming that you know the answer to the question.
No, we're not.
If you just
Because the pre-survey ask is blank. The pre-survey is blank. Do your blank before we get there is my point. Don't walk in. We don't have time to get 600 people to put Post-it notes and then take that information and then present it the next day and then take that information and vote on it the next day. We will not be able to pull it off. So my concern is, do we encourage them to ask now for the initials? Just say, give us, how do you talk about what you're doing in your community? What are your terms? An entrepreneur is this, and this, and then let the crowd provide all the, the amount of submissions that are similar are going to grow that cloud, right? So I don't know, just thought. Any other ideas?
Hassan?
Yeah, I'm just processing all of this.
Philosophizing. Okay.
Processing.
Well, I'm just trying to look at the rest of the goals right now, so I'm just trying to read real quick to see where else there might be any action points for us on this. Okay. I don't see a ton that we really can, I think it kind of all falls together. It's 3.1 makes 3.2, 3.2 makes 3.3, right?
I think we came up with some cool ideas.
Yeah.
And I think that we just throw those ideas out to the broader group, and then it's kind of like out of our hands, and then the team just decides what they think is best,
I agree. I appreciate that, Samantha. I think that I think we've got the general idea on kind of what can we honestly do. Maybe we do a call out to the champions, hey, ideas, hey guys, here's the 2 ideas or 3 ideas we came up with on the call.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out how much can we accomplish between now and ESHIP to gather some of these things for 3.1 so that we can be working on 3.2 live at ESHIP. Because I would rather be working on 3.2 live at ESHIP with everyone, because then that's it. We're right there. But
we made some progress. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely made some progress. Okay. Well, is there anything else anybody would like to bring up?
I don't think so. I'm good.
I'm going to do my best, Cecilia. Give me one word to finish the rest of the day.
You go first, Hassan.
Yeah, I'm just going to say something that I've been thinking about all morning. It's the unconference.
Unconference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to use 2. I'm going to say systems thinking.
Okay.
Like, my mind is like, but I like that space. I like the messy, creative, like not quite together their space. I'm cool. And I think it's going to be a great time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I think I'm going to go headspace. Headspace is, I think everybody needs to, get out of their own headspace. And I think we'll find that the answers are right in front of us already. So I definitely want to thank you guys for taking the time. I appreciate it. Sam, so glad you could make it. Can I call you Sam, by the way?
Yeah, I
Okay.
prefer Sam.
I don't know if you got a preference, So
Sam's good.
I met a young gentleman yesterday who was like, "My name is Christopher." I was like, "Oh, okay.
No,
Sorry,
that's not it. No,
that's not good."
Whatever.
Exactly. All right. Well, I definitely thank you for your time on behalf of the group, and you guys are awesome. And I will report this stuff back, and we'll see what we can come up with. All right.
Thanks for
Thanks,
facilitating.
Tyler.
Thanks. Absolutely. And Hassan, I'm going to reach out to you about that interview. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah.